Good morning, everybody. Evening, whenever you happen to be listening. Whatever. I hate openings. Welcome back to 22 Panels. My guest today is Fred Van Lente, who has a couple of uh, fantastic things coming down the chute right now. Kickstarter for Gamemasters, the cartoon history of role-playing games. Comic book history of role-playing games, rather. Is that on Backer Kit or is
It's
it
on
on
both. It's
Kickstarter?
on both. I'm not gonna lie to you. This is like my
Oh, it is on Kickstarter.
sixth crowdfunding campaign, but I don't. But yeah, I think you can pledge via BackerKit, but primarily it's on
Yeah.
Kickstarter.
Yeah. I just Clover sometimes does stuff that's only on Backer Kit, so I wanted to make
True.
certain I got it right.
Yes.
But I just pulled up the Kickstarter campaign page. It is in fact on Kickstarter, and it looks like already fully funded. So
Yeah.
now you're essentially going and buying it rather than making certain it happens. Um, which is cool because you get to know that you're getting this awesome product. So tell me about how this came together. It looks like it was labor of love for you. I read
Absolutely.
some stuff at the beat, but it's more fun to hear you say it.
Sure. As a lot of people know, I kind of am doing nonfiction comics for about 20 years. A lot of times with my frequent collaborator Ryan Dunleavy, we've done Action Philosophers and the comic book history of comics, Action Presidents. But Random House, 10 Speed via Random House, asked me to do the comic book history of basketball. And I thought my buddy Tom Fowler, who I'd done a lot of comics with, um, like Hulk, and we did a book for Image via Nick Dragata called How Tunes. That was a lot of fun. I always enjoyed working with Tom. So I thought he'd be a good fit for basketball, but it turns out Tom did not think he would be a good fit for basketball. He doesn't like sports like so many of the in our geek profession.
Yeah, I'm only a baseball guy, so I get it.
Yeah, no, I see your cap. I am a fellow Mets fan slash
That's
sufferer.
actually a New York Giants cap.
It is a
I
New
I
York Giants
I I
cap.
I
No, it
I
is.
I-
I'm
I'm
from
I'm
the
I'm a
Giants.
Cubs fan, so I have
Interesting. Mixed messages.
I have not particularly good feelings for the Mets,
I hear
but
you. I
but
hear
I
you.
do like to put on caps that go along with the cities of the people I'm talking to. So it was either
Interesting.
this one
Gotcha.
or like the Brooklyn Dodgers or the Brooklyn
Okay.
Eagles.
Sure.
I have my New York selection of caps, just no
Well,
Mets or Yankees.
like I say, as long as it's not a Yankees cap, that's all I
Yeah,
care
yeah.
about.
See, I'm a Red Sox fan, so I mean, we agree on that one.
Yes, no, it's the enemy of my enemy, etc.
But
The
I'm
enemy.
also a Red Sox fan, and we don't like the Mets a whole lot either. So I got two
That is
reasons
true.
not to like the Mets.
I don't know. Both of your clubs have won more titles in this century than mine has. So
Well, yes, but both of my clubs have specific horrible memories that involve
yes,
your team.
yes, exactly. That
I,
is
I
true.
grew up listening to Ron Santo on the radio, and I'm pretty certain that Pat Hughes just kept his hand on the cough button when they were playing the Mets because there always seemed to be a pause before the word Mets when Ron was talking. And I assumed that there was an epithet there.
I was at a work conference in California during the 2015 NLCS, and so the only like satisfaction I got was because I was in California watching around dinner time that
Yeah.
series, which was obviously enjoyed solely by Mets fans.
Yes, yes. Thankfully 2016 was much better, and I
Clean
got to live
clean
on
that
top of the
taste out of
world
your
for
mouth, I bet.
8 whole days until 2016 became the worst year ever.
Right, right. Good way of putting it. Um,
It was like it giveth and then it taketh away. Somebody rolled a natural one to take us back to what we were talking about.
that's right. And I do remember there was some consolation because the day after that election day was my regularly meeting Wednesday night D&D group here in
Okay.
Brooklyn. So by gaming, we were able to, you know, feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
the
Get
world.
out some frustration.
So Tom Fowler did not want to do basketball. However, he did say, uh, if you ever do the history of role playing games, give me a call. The little light bulb went off over my head. And 5 years later, the Kickstarter for Gamemasters, the comic book history of role playing games, launched. And so, yeah, we've been working on this for a long time. It is almost entirely inked. Some of what the Kickstarter funds will be going towards is the great colorist Bill Crabtree, who Tom's worked with quite a bit, particularly at, I believe, DC. So he'll be coloring the book. Um, and Tom's gorgeous painted cover is there for all to see. It's actually one of the Kickstarter pledges is this terrific sort of homage to the original AD&D Player's Handbook with all sorts of different genres and sizes and shapes and colors of gamers involved.
Right.
Um, and we have some fun and there's one bit which you can see on the Kickstarter page that is this double page spread we did of various D&D influences, like Lord of the Rings, Doctor Strange, various
Yeah.
other. Peter Cushing is Van Helsing is the basis for the cleric class. For those of you who didn't know,
I did not, but that's pretty cool.
which is great because Peter Cushing himself was a huge wargamer. He was a mini
Okay.
collector and painter, and pre D&D would do gaming with his miniatures based on
Okay.
rules developed by H.G. Wells,
Okay.
famous
Well, and
British guy who was into
yeah,
miniatures.
we just did a deep dive on die and even
Okay.
played it once on air.
Oh, great.
So yeah, no, I
Nice. Kieran very
recently
kindly.
learned about H.G. Wells and his gaming
Yeah. Kieran
influence.
gave us a very nice pull quote. He's been a big
He
advocate of
did
Game
indeed.
Masters,
He
which we
he he
appreciate.
said, when researching Die, I read the vast majority of the existent histories of the RPG. What Van Lente and Fowler have done here is the first rank of them. Absolutely the most accessible and certainly the funniest. I'm actively envious. So I think he wishes that you got and started a little earlier and he could have saved on reading time.
Technically, we did, but it's like these things is a process. Anyway, so that double page spread is actually you can get it. It's a lovely slipcase that you can get the book in, and then there's also a Dungeon Master's guide or screen rather, a
Screen
Game Master's screen
that
that
has it.
that has it as it's since he did it per the script as a Dungeon Master screen, which is great.
Yeah, no, I mean, people should definitely go to the Kickstarter page to look at those because they really are uh, beautiful images. And the slipcase can be yours for only $50.
It's true.
An extra $10 and sign it. Well, I guess that's the early bird. So that's probably over. An extra $25 if they'll sign
Yep. 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 So yeah. So it's just a fascinating history, and I've been a lifelong gamer more or less since about 10 years old. So
Well, talk to me some about your gaming history. What did you start with?
well,
What
my
do you like
parents
to
got me the
play?
box D&D basic set,
Okay.
early 80s, and I played that a lot as a middle schooler, a little bit in high school. In high school, I got into Top Secret, which was TSR's espionage game.
Okay.
A little campaign with that with my buddies. When I got to college, one of my first jobs freshman year, the summer after my freshman year, was I was a camp counselor, and they wanted me to be the D&D counselor. But
Okay.
I didn't. Again, my antipathy for D&D remained largely because not so much because I hate the system or whatever. Just the high fantasy genre is not really my bag.
Okay.
Uh, so I got the kids into Call of Cthulhu,
Okay.
which is the H.P. Lovecraft horror game. And my assistant counselor, I was like 19, 20. He was like 15. He was French, which amused me because that meant he learned to speak English playing role playing games. So he could say armor class before hello. He got me into GURPS, the generic
Okay.
role playing game from Steve Jackson, which I loved. And did that a lot through college in my 20s. In fact, my first ever writing that I ever published was a GURPS article for Steve Jackson Games Pyramid magazine.
Oh,
And the
very
first
cool.
book I ever had published in the 90s, was a Call of Cthulhu supplement. So I was living the dream until the industry collapsed along with comics in the late 90s. Turns out I picked an historically terrible uh, time to break into the industry, but I persevered. Gosh darn it!
Well, I mean,
And now they can't get rid of me.
the industry's always collapsing and always coming back.
Sure,
So, the people who are good at it, and you are,
except for
to
a
stick
brief,
around for that.
glorious moment in World War II. Yeah, so then I stopped playing role playing games when I broke into comics, like in the early aughts, just because like it just seemed like too much like work, like coming up with stories and stuff. I was not into it. But then like I turned 40 and I kind of like I miss Call of Cthulhu. So I have a monthly gaming group I run, and then I participate in a weekly group also.
Cool.
Um, so yeah, and we play all sorts of stuff.
Very, very
Mostly there's a bunch of horror fans in my monthly group, and they love Call of Cthulhu. I have to beat them with sticks to get them to. A couple of them, if we played nothing but Call of Cthulhu, they would be perfectly happy. But we're doing a Dark Ages campaign. Except no, it's not true. They got time traveled, so now we're doing a Cthulhu Invictus Imperial Roman campaign.
okay. See, I am more of a novice gamer, so I started during the pandemic and have
Okay,
have mostly been like the comic relief and the family role playing game group. So lots of this stuff I understand on like a small level, and other parts of it
right.
go way over my head. But I'm fascinated. I'd spent most of my life like aware of role playing games and not opposed to role playing games, but without the patience for role playing games, I think is the way to put it. I think I needed like Roll20 and
Okay.
um what's the other system? The
Did
actual
you?
D&D Beyond.
Yep.
I think
Did
I needed the things that would like guide me through character making and simplify it and like have it all there rather than me having to remember it. Um,
Are
for
you a
that
big
matter,
video game guy at all?
no, I'm not. I'm not. I'm a big comic reader. I used to be a big book reader. Now I'm more of a book listener. Um, I like to take an active role, but like when I don't have to have like the esoteric skill set to take an active role. Does that make sense?
Sure. I
So,
mean, yeah.
so, so like playing the character is fun. Creating the character is fun. Like figuring out how to make the mechanics work, not so much.
Right. Well, hopefully that's just your game master's job, and
Yep,
they
yep.
make
He knows
relatively.
me well. He's my little brother or my uncle, depending on which game.
Gotcha.
So they work around me. Um, but I have the same thing with video games. It's like, oh, this game looks really cool. I don't have the Twitch skills. I don't want to figure out what button to hit when.
Yeah, Twitch is something I never understood. I play video games to get away from people. I don't.
Right. No. I meant I don't have see that's right. They called Twitch. They
Well,
called
that's
the
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 streaming service.
platform Twitch.
Yeah.
Twitch is what I've always referred to as the button skills, the timing, the
I don't know.
the you
Maybe
must
that's
hit.
man, it's where the site gets its name from. That never occurred to me before.
It's possible. I don't have the
Motor.
I mean, I can play baseball pretty well if I
Okay.
limit like which, not in like the, oh, you swing by moving your stick forward and swing. No, I swing by hitting a button.
Right. Right. Not swinging a bat.
Right.
Right.
Um, but yeah, no, any game where I have to like make decisions about which button to hit when and still do it quickly, forget about it. I can do a button mashing game, or I can do games with really simplistic buttons.
Okay.
Um, Ones where I have to remember to go like A, X, Y, Z. I don't even know all the. Forget it. It just
Depends on
I
the
can eat
console.
right. I can either do that or I can do something fast. I can't do like both.
Well, the good news about Game Masters for you and
Is this
anyone else
comic?
listening to this comic is A, it's a comic.
Yeah.
I have definitely found that it's much easier to get someone who likes comics to read a comic about philosophy or American history or the history of gaming than it is for anyone who's into gaming or basketball or philosophy to pick up a comic.
Which is a shame because
Doing this for 20 years, and that's
uh,
pretty
no, I understand, but this is where I'm going to take the. It's been a while since we talked, so I don't know that you remember. I'm a special ed teacher, but
okay.
but
Like my
the
sister.
the 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 school I teach at is very all-inclusive special ed. We like if you have documented learning disabilities and you're getting a C in a college prep class, we want you getting an A in a college prep class. If you're getting an A in a college prep class, we want you getting an A in an AP class,
Okay.
right? So we bring people into special ed rather than going, no, no, you're too smart for special ed. Um, but that means we need people like me who can like help kids with calculus or biology or AP English or whatever. Um, or as it turned out a couple of times this year, AP philosophy. And as it turns
Okay.
out, your books were in we just kept them in the resource room for the
Great.
year. Um,
Let's do.
because when I had students who were trying to wrap their head around some concept or another, they could generally grab the book, flip through, find the philosopher that they were studying, and once they read the couple of pages in Action Philosophers and then went back to their text, it like clicked and sunk in.
It's
So
fantastic.
you helped a couple of special ed kids get A's in philosophy this year.
I love
Um,
it. Great.
so it should be something that's accessible, but you're
This
right.
Game Masters will go into game design courses, perhaps, or
I hope
library.
so. I hope so because I mean this first chapter, the Beat has an exclusive preview, an Ash
Yes.
can of the first chapter.
Yeah.
Um, and I love uh, the way you take it from just a reminder that like half the artifacts we have indicate that they were from games, but then take us through chess into war games with it, already in such a way that you can see, oh,
Yeah.
the history of humanity has been moving us towards role-playing games for a
That's
long,
right.
long, long
Right.
time.
Yeah, I mean, Dungeons and Dragons is started out from a wargaming tradition. I mentioned Peter Cushing before, and H.G. Wells, and having toy soldiers. That came out of the desire of toy soldier to collectors to say, hey, what if we fought with my collection versus your collection? It's very similar to something like Magic the Gathering, right? Where you have a
Right.
collectible card game and you make different decks and you collect the cards and you fight your friends with it. But yeah, so Dungeons and Dragons comes out of the wargaming tradition, and the earliest war game, or the most popular earliest war game, is chess. So we start Game Masters with chess, which I feel like is something it's pretty universal. People have heard of it or seen it played and get the basic concept, even if they're not
Right.
like me, not masters of it themselves. And so, you get to start like in the 6th century India and talk about the formation of chess and how that turned into this kind of eccentric Prussian coming up with a role playing game with or a war game with dice that the king loved in Berlin Palace. That then became the formation of Dungeons and Dragons and miniatures gaming in general.
Now, I think you talked some about this when you and Ryan were on previously because we were focusing on your nonfiction stuff, but talk to me about um like how much of this is from stuff you knew? How much are you running to the library or spending on the internet to like piece together your history to then
I knew it all
craft?
beforehand. I just
Well, I figured
I
that.
just opened up my skull and let it
Okay.
all out in the comic. No,
So you were done with the research in seventh grade and it's just been
that's right.
waiting in there.
That's right. That was sort of more true of the comic book history of comics, where I had like just been into comics history and reading about comics history. I didn't really know
Right.
anything about the history of role playing games, which was sort of strange. Other than stuff like just having subscribed to like Dragon magazine in the '80s and stuff. Um, but there's a couple great resources. There's a historian by the name of John Peterson, who's kind of the main guy in this field. He wrote a great book called "Playing at the World," that's sort of the history of wargaming. And there's a guy, I'm blanking on his name, but he kickstarted a great 4 volume history of role playing games called Designers and Dragons. That was exhaustive. Um, but kind of like how I found when I was researching comics, the primary historical sources for comics are very much written by fans. And fans, as we all know, tend to only be fans of very specific kind of siloed things. Like they love Batman, or they love Robert Crumb, or they love romance comics. And so the challenge in comic book history of comics was to take all that disparate stuff and make it one singular narrative. Comic book, Gamemasters is a little bit different in that it's really the history of an idea. And the challenge you have, what I try to explain to comics people is that in the field of role playing games, like comparing other role playing games to Dungeons and Dragons is like saying, what if for superheroes, Batman was the most popular superhero, and then the next most popular character was like Squirrel Girl, right? So there's no X Men, there's no Spider Man, there's nothing in
Hey,
between.
don't
Popular.
go knocking Squirrel Girl. I
I'm not
love
knocking
Squirrel
Squirrel
Girl.
Girl. I am not
Okay.
knocking Squirrel
Okay.
Girl. She's very popular. However, she could not sustain an entire industry. You know,
Probably not. But as
if it
much
was
as I
just
love
Batman,
Batman, if I had to choose between one or the other to have for the
that's
rest of
Squirrel
my
Girl all the
life,
way.
I think
Squirrel
I'd go
Girl.
Squirrel Girl.
Yeah, I actually, yeah. Again, I'm not a big Batman guy. I may just not be a fan of things that are popular. You know,
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to carve out a niche for
I
yourself.
don't like Dungeons and Dragons, Batman, or the Yankees. Clearly, I'm not.
I mean, I'm with you on the Yankees 100%.
But
Dungeons and Dragons, it's not my favorite system.
yeah, no, me neither. Even though I play it, my friends love it, so I was running it last night.
I
But
mean, and part of that's the first system I played. My brother was running a Pathfinder game. That's why I was excited when you wrote the
I like
Pathfinder
that.
comic because
I
I'm
like
like,
Pathfinder. I wrote
oh,
the
I
Pathfinder.
know this.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of what got me back into it. Actually, was my friends had a Pathfinder group. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell is Pathfinder? So I'd
Yeah.
been out for a while. But so most of the primary sources are about Dungeons and Dragons, right? Because that's as good as playing at the world is, it basically ends with the creation of Dungeons and Dragons. Well, we
Yeah.
start with Dungeons and Dragons and go well beyond that,
Cool, cool.
other systems.
Yeah, it looks like Playing with the World has been reprinted in 3 volumes now,
It's
maybe
a big boy.
expanded.
That does not
It's
surprise me.
yeah, it's the elusive shift how role-playing games forge their identity, and then Game Wizards, the epic battle for Dungeons and Dragons.
That's a different book, but
Oh,
yes,
well, it's still
also by
John Peterson.
yes, correct.
And Playing at the World 2E Volume 1, The Invention of Dungeons and Dragons. But the original
Yeah,
Playing at the World is out of print for a while now.
yeah, it came out in like 2012. But
Oh,
this, as many people know, is the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons 2024. It was first published in 1974. There are a lot of comics connections that comics fans may not be aware of. On the 1974 edition of the box edition of Dungeons and Dragons, the illustration was ripped off of a Doctor Strange story by Dan Adkins. What's fun about that first issue, or excuse me, that first edition of D&D is the Peterson's also involved in another book called Art and Arcana, which is the history of the
right.
illustrations of dragons, because that's obviously a big part of the game. And the 17-year-old or whoever it was they hired to do the art for Dungeons and Dragons gave $20 in a and a ball of string too. They they cribbed that from every part of that Strange Tales comic. This is back when when Doctor Strange shared Strange Tales with Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. So in addition to the fantasy stuff taken from the Doctor Strange tale, a bunch of the illustrations are of Nick Fury, but with like his pistol like erased and a sword stuck in his hand. So it's pretty funny. The comparisons you see there in Art and Arcana.
It's fun. Um, see, every once in a while, I like completely lose my train of thought. This is why I work well in special ed. I relate to my students. Um, what what was the I mean, when you're writing a history of something as wide as role-playing games. I imagine putting a narrative together doesn't always come easy. How did you go strictly chronological? Did you wind up going by system? How did the shape of the book come together?
I mean, it's very much a let water find its own path kind of situation. But I find I learned this actually. I figured this out during Action Philosophers. Actually, is it following the chronological order is this really the simplest and cleanest way. And so, what you have in role playing games, which I find sort of super fascinating, because it sort of shows really the evolution of kind of geek culture and its mainstreaming throughout my lifetime, which I never would have. I'm very slightly older than Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
um, uh, D&D came out of this desire to simulate reality, right? Like both Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax, the co-creators of Dungeons and Dragons, were that what the game that got them into gaming was Gettysburg, Avalon Hill's Gettysburg, which is simulating the North fighting the South in Pennsylvania. Maybe the South could win. Actually, I played Gettysburg, and like I don't see how, actually don't see how the South can win. But anyway, and then the desire to do D&D came out of how do we simulate wizards casting fireballs, hitting orcs with maces, and that kind of stuff. So really, it was like the idea was we're trying to do something that's playable, but at the same time, quote unquote, realistic, whatever that means to you. But then in the mid 80s, you had innovations in games like Marvel Superheroes, which was TSR's second biggest game, where your heroes earned karma points, and karma points let you legally cheat. They let you fudge dice rolls, so you're sort of freed from the tyranny of dice. 5e D&D adopted this as inspiration, right? Where I get to re-roll, or there's a cheat code. You have a built-in cheat code. And Marvel Superheroes is very explicit. You only get to cheat if you're one of the good guys. And so if you're playing the Punisher and you shoot a bunch of people, then you lose all your karma points because you did a bad thing, you know? So you're moving from simulating reality, quote unquote reality, or even history in the case of Gettysburg, into really simulating stories and storytelling, right? There's good guys and bad guys in history, but in history, the bad guys' winning percentage is much higher than it is in heroic fiction. Star Wars is another very influential system that also had force points, and if you did enough bad things, you would become a Sith and basically be out of the game. But then as we've moved forward even further, the gaming systems have really become even beyond storytelling, very much become almost like simulations of normal human relationships, which in our I said that in kind of a mocking way, but in our modern world where everything is mediated through Facebook or x.com or God help us podcasts, not yours though, yours is great.
Oh,
uh
thank you so much.
it's very much a one-way communication, but role-playing games are a way, sort of a structured socialization that lets us communicate and interact with each other in a safe way, and hopefully not a socially anxious way. Depending, obviously depends on who's in your group.
That's better.
But so it's really fascinating. I wouldn't like go so far as say it holds up a mirror to our culture or anything like that, but I think in the modern era it very much holds up a mirror to our current culture in a way that it hasn't previously to its in its 50-year existence.
I think this is something. I mean, I'm a bit autistic. I've got anxiety, got ADHD, bipolar, and so I spent a lot of my life like scripting things to be able to be regular, um,
Sure.
to be able to not stand out. I actually now spend a lot of my time trying to create environments where I can just be myself. But before I realized that that was more healthy, I spent a lot of time building intricate masks. One of the things that I have noticed about role-playing games, just for me personally, is that they do allow me more ability to find structures that work for me because it's like, oh, wait, you can break it down like this. you
Sure.
know, because of the nature where it's like it's supposed to be random and it's supposed to feel random, but at the same time, it's not entirely. You know, you've got these paths. You know, there's a formula. Um, I think that's really useful for a lot of people, and probably the group of people that have been most attracted to role playing games through the years is a way to kind of um, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, Organize their thoughts and feelings.
Sure.
It's probably why it's been such a regular comic trope to use gaming as a way to tell a different story, whether it's I Kill Giants or Four Kids Walk into a Bank or whatever. You know, you have that structure of gaming is the outlet that is what allows generally a group of kids, but not always, die involved adults to really kind of confront who they are and what they want, um, what they're scared of, etc. Um, so that's always been something very cool to me about the games, and in that sense, it does. As we are a more segmented society than ever, because there's not as much reason to go outside. There's so many people around that we don't have the same motivations to get to know our neighbors, whatever. We build our own communities. Um, Putting together a set of rules to do that is something that we do. So I think it's a fair. I'm thinking out loud here. You can interrupt me at any point.
But it's your show. Um, yeah, and then also you have the less positive aspects of that, right? Which is what in in the gaming community is called games lawyer, rules lawyering,
Right,
and a lot of actually, kind of
right, right.
attitudes. But that I just think that's flipped.
And for those of you listening, because we don't put out video, Fred just did a fantastic sticking his glasses on fully straight to do his actually.
That's
So
right.
I had to
Pushing
describe
my
that for
glasses
my
up. I
mom and John and whoever's listening.
appreciate that. We love you, mom. Um, yeah, so we're addressing all this stuff, and
Right. Well,
the reception's been great so
yeah, no, it fully funded relatively quickly. It's still kickstarting through August 22nd. I encourage everybody to go and at least check it out because the art is amazing. But if you have any interest in comics, any interest in history, any interest in role playing, $15 will get you a digital.
Yep.
You know, I recommend going ahead and spending the 35 on the book, but $15 will get you digital, and you can read what looks like a really cool story. Um, and I love comic. I mean, you made fun of podcasts. I love comic books and podcasts because they're actually really great ways to learn about things you don't know. So even if you don't
absolutely.
love role playing, I can all but guarantee just from knowing Fred's other work and from knowing the strengths of the medium that if you've ever wanted to understand your weird brother who's always role playing games, um, this would probably be a great place to like get insight into to what attracts your friend, family member, whatever. And certainly to learn some history. I mean, as we talked about with the first chapter, we start from chess and wargaming and trying to figure out how to be more tactical in the field. But I want to pivot now because I'm equally excited in your new Mad Cave book. I've been excited about so much at Mad Cave. They've been killing it lately.
Yeah.
Um, Murder Kingdom, and I have to read the description just because I love. Did you get to write the copy? Who wrote this copy? This is like really good book copy.
I don't 100% know what you're about to read, but I'm
Uh,
pretty sure that yes, I did write
Oh
it.
yeah, no, it feels like you. This is from the previews page. You must be this tall to die. Once upon a time, in a strange land called Florida, a masked psycho starts murdering cast members of the Storybook Kingdom theme park in ways identical to the gory original Grimm's fairy tales. Princess turned detective Tanith is the only person who can unmask the killer. before she and her friends are all dying unhappily never after. I have an appreciation for good.
Thank you. I hate doing it, so when it comes out good, it feels good.
Yeah, you had me at Strangeland called Florida. Talk to me about Murder Kingdom. This looks fun.
So yeah, so you just set the stage perfectly. It's terrific art by Chris Ponda. The story takes place in an off-brand Disney World called Storybook Kingdom, owned by a small time animation making family. But then all these murders start happening. You know, uh,
That's how you know it's off brand. Nobody's ever died at Disney World.
that's right. I won't, like in the original Red Riding Hood, Little Red Riding Hood, Red and her grandma get eaten, and the huntsman has to chop open the wolf to get them out of there. And so it's sort of stuff along there. Well, those, this 16th, 17th to 18th century German fairy tales, like these days, parents are like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I've always loved the sisters in Cinderella. They're like, no, I can make my foot fit. Let me grab the butcher's knife.
yes, and
I
chop
don't
my
need
toes off.
these toes.
Yeah, and
See, it's my slipper.
and in some versions, Cinderella's bird friends get revenge for their shoddy treatment by pecking the sister's eyes out.
I love it.
The Little Mermaid in Hans Christian Andersen's version dissolves into the foam of the sea because she does not murder the prince's bride to be, thereby winning his heart. So she gets cursed to. She doesn't get her fins back. She instead says dies horribly. So if many of those have led you to think of some horrific murders that may be happening during the course of the story, you may be right.
Okay.
They may be worse than what you're imagining. I hope they are.
Yeah.
I like to exceed expectations.
Well, and I mean, just based on what you're describing, but then looking at the cover art, a couple books that we've loved this year that did that like twist. Oh, look at this wholesome book. Oh my God, what are they doing?
Right.
Um, did you get a chance to read Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees?
Not yet. I hear great things though.
Oh, Patrick Horvath. It's like Berenstain Bears, where like the sweet, everybody's aunt is a serial killer.
Mhm.
So it's like Berenstain Bears meets Dexter. That's what I've been told. And then Jay Stevens did his Dwellings, which is just like old time, very cartoon strip, like Charlie Brownish, Dennis the Menace style artwork, but like horrific maiming and killing. So you're
It's a
in the
subgenre,
zeitgeist here, Fred.
right?
I'm
That's true.
pleased with you.
This is another project that's been gestating forever. I want to say this one actually predates Gamemasters by a year.
Oh wow.
So this one has been a long time coming.
So well, talk about that journey because I think most people don't realize how long comics can germinate.
Yeah,
And
I often, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll bang this out and I'll have a proposal ready for the publisher in 2 weeks. No, 4 years later. Okay, it's
right.
done. It took me a little bit longer than I thought. I've written a couple prose novels, like murder mysteries. One was Ten Dead Comedians, which is about a bunch of stand-up comics trapped on a tropical island with one of them is killing everybody else off. I also did a book called The Con Artist, which was, by the way, illustrated by my Gamemasters collaborator Tom Fowler. That's a murder mystery set at San Diego Comic Con. And so I was trying to come up with some of these pop culture mysteries. So I pitched my prose publisher, Murder Kingdom. They passed, and then it kicked around. Actually, this is like the second or third. Mad Cave finally picked it up after I've been at a couple other publishers. But now it's a comic, and I couldn't be happier. Chris, as I said, has done a fantastic job with both the designs of the amusement park. We have a map. I can't wait for Paulina gonna show's second issue cover to come out, which features the map of the park, suitably bloody. Um, and yeah, it's just been terrific. just it just a lot of times deals fall through, and you've got to find the right artist, and it just takes a while. uh, I get a lot of students. I teach comics a lot. I get a lot of students who think that they're like, well, I wrote a screenplay, but making a comic is easier than a movie, so I'm gonna try to break into comics. And I'm like, well, it's true that it's absolutely true that making a comic is quote unquote easier than a movie, and that you don't need 200 people. But it's still the average, getting a project off the ground. And I think it's this is true really regardless of how powerful or popular you are in the industry, from idea to the issue hitting the stands. I mean, I think 5 years is a you know, pretty standard,
Right.
you know?
Um, See, I fell off looking at your novels now because I have we'll talk about briefly talk about the one novel that I have read of yours. I really enjoyed Never Sleep. Um,
Yes, thank you.
so talk briefly, give the pitch to Never Sleep because I didn't prepare to talk about Never Sleep today. It just popped into my head. Um,
Yeah, no problem. Never Sleep as a historical thriller. It came out last year. It's about the first two female private detectives in American history teaming up to thwart the assassination attempt on Abraham Lincoln as he's coming to Washington from Springfield to be inaugurated. And the plot centered on Baltimore. So it's
what
1860 Baltimore.
I mean, other than the obvious that it's got some actual historical roots, a lot of them, and just sounds fun. What drew you to that story? What?
It's one I'd come across, I think, while I was researching the Abraham Lincoln Action Presidents comic, and the so-called Baltimore plot, and just the idea of having these two very different women and telling the stories. One is stationed in kind of high society in the city, and the other is stationed out in the middle of nowhere, in farmland with another undercover operative who they're pretending to be husband and wife, and just the contrast between the two, I thought was really a great source of drama. It's one thing to be the first female private detective in American history, but then when your boss is like, now train the second one. Oh, great. You know, so that sort of was born intentionally.
And while you're at it, save the president.
And Save the President. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that book was near and dear to my heart. That again was another thing that took, I think, at least 5 years to come out.
Talk some about I mean, as I noticed that you have coming out early in January a Bloodshot novel.
Yes.
Um, Talk to me about the difference between writing prose and the difference in writing comics. Certainly, what's more fun, what's harder. Um, Hopefully the comics are more fun. Eh,
Well, they're
but
both, it's different kinds of fun, right? I mean, uh, the challenge, of course, it's the difference between building a house and drawing a blueprint, right? When you're doing a novel, the whole world is in your hands, and you have to, you can't just design every room. You have to, saw the wood and hammer the nails and lay the tile down and pick the drapes and all the rest of it. When you're doing a comic, what you're really doing is making a blueprint for someone else to finish. So on that simple level, doing a comic is easier because you're with other people, and there's a lot of stuff that the artist comes up with in his or her own imagination that you can't leave to chance if you're a prose novelist, and you've got to actually flesh that out yourself. But they're just different muscles, and so what's great is if I get sick of writing a comic one day, I can switch to the novel project I've got going. If I'm stuck on a novel, I can just switch to writing comics. So it's actually very similar to switching between nonfiction and fiction. There's just such different parts of your brain, that you're exercising.
so
Uh,
is that eh, do you deliberately try to have a fiction, nonfiction comic and a novel going kind of all at once so that you can move around, or is it happenstance when that happens?
since I started writing novels professionally about a decade ago, yeah, I mean, I deliberate makes it sound like um I have an option. to not do that and do something else. But I saw a great documentary about Albert Brooks, and he was talking about his agents like, why do you have to always take the hard road? And Albert Brooks is like, you think I see two roads? One road. That's how I feel. It's one road.
That's fair. I mean, I asked the question because Nate Powell, the most recent time I talked to him, said that like he made himself. He's only working on one book right now after like a decade of always having
Sure.
a nonfiction and fiction project going. That he justified as it gives me more place to move around and whatnot. And he's like, that's true, but also gave me more reason not to like stop and breathe and spend time with my family and whatnot. And I decided that I'm gonna try to do this one differently. So I always, but I've also heard from Bendis. Bendis always likes to have at least 5 projects so that like he can
Sure.
set himself. I need to get a comic done a week. I generally know which comic, but I also like the comic that I decide it's going to be is not one that's due for at least a month. I try to be ahead in case I wind up feeling Miles Morales more than Christian Walker. Um, so I mean, it, in that sense, it is sometimes deliberate when people go, okay, I need to try to have this project and this project and this project so that I can uh, move between them. But I suppose a lot of it is what will you get paid for?
Some of it is absolutely. Just I sympathize with what Nate's saying about his family, but I happen to be married to another writer who is equally as driven and workaholic as I am. So it's not like
Well,
I
that
would
makes it easier.
more of her if I slowed down at all. Um, but no, it's just I think again to use the same cliche over again, it's just water finding its own path. I think yeah, if Brian does a comic a week, that impresses me and mildly frightens me. Not even I go that fast.
I don't know if he does anymore. That's from interviews a decade ago when he was
Okay,
constantly
fair enough.
doing the
I mean, I believe it, but
six comics a month,
yeah, no, I well, I've been writing a lot of Valiant stuff lately, and a couple of one shots. So I was actually clocking in at about a comic a week, but that was only for 1 month.
Right.
But yeah, uh, I just
And I
I'm
should also point out that Brian has had a serious like heart issue since then, so it
oh,
might
I didn't
not
know
be
that.
something that we should recommend to people.
Interesting.
I
Uh,
don't know if he works the same pace since he
right,
almost died.
right, right. Keep up that cardio, folks. Um, yeah, yeah, I've been very lucky. At the moment, I'm working on many things, and that's really, I just, but I also, I think, speaking to that, you also have to limit yourself. I for a decade have basically said do not work on weekends, and you do basically a 9 to 5 schedule, and I've been largely able to maintain that. Sometimes you got to work nights, sometimes you do have to work on a Saturday. That's just, I think it doesn't matter what kind of job you have. Sometimes that's just the way it is. But generally, and I think that's what a lot of comics people struggle with is when you work from home and you are
Deciding
maintaining
that the
your own
workday is done.
schedule. You've got to maintain that, boundaries, right? And in my 20s, I think like a lot of people, I just was all over the place.
Right.
What ended up happening was I was able to have the discipline to say, okay, I'm gonna work on this project from breakfast to lunch, and another project from lunch to dinner, and then it's
So do
baseball or video games or
right.
movies or
So do you do it more by time or by word count? I mean, that's another thing that
um,
I've always been fascinated with between writers.
yeah. I mean, also another thing that I find is super helpful for me with boundaries is I actually have a minimum number of pages to put out a day
Okay.
that I have to cap myself, because what that ends up doing is it allows you to think about the project when you're not literally working on it. So it actually paces you. I actually have to slow myself down rather than speed up. Um, so that's also doing 2 projects a day or trying to I'm like, okay, I'm taping this podcast
Mhm.
tad at 12:15, so I've got to get my
Right.
4 pages in before 12:15, and I did.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
I
Yeah.
had a
No. I.
clever marketing tweet I thought of for Gamemasters, so I did that after doing my pages and logging onto the Zoom with you, and then now I'm gonna
I
go
mean,
eat my
you're
fries.
welcome to do marketing tweets while you're. I mean, I don't require all of your attention.
No, I that yeah that I'd be what's the
I
question? There'd be a lot of that.
I've talked to artists that continue drawing while I just I love that they can do this. That like they'll have the
Yeah,
conversation with me while they're working on a page.
I can't do that. That's not me.
Um, any other projects that are uh, in the allowed to talk about stage?
Sure, I'm doing a lot of stuff for Valiant with their Resurgence event. I'm actually writing it, starting with issue 2. Um, I'm very excited that Archer and Armstrong, which is a book that's very dear to my heart, is coming back in a couple weeks, the 3rd week in August. So that pick up that new #1. Um, and then Resurgence, I take over in October.
Well, for those of us who aren't as deep into Valiant, and I raise my hand, I've
Right?
like toyed with some, and enjoyed a lot of it. I just haven't gotten deep into it. You just said words that I have to explore. Archer and Armstrong is near and dear to your heart. What makes Archer and Armstrong near and dear to your heart?
Well, they were created by Barry Windsor Smith in the original round of Valiant in the early '90s, but then David Odger redesigned them, and so I brought a lot of myself to it. So it's basically a poetry-loving, hard-drinking, immortal strongman and his right-wing Christian assassin buddy team up to go bust conspiracies around the world. And this new series is subtitled Assassination.
Okay.
Assassination. And involves presidential assassination conspiracies, the Masons, the secret crypt underneath the Smithsonian, the actual crypt that's underneath the U.S. Capitol that you can go and visit if you're on a tour of the Capitol, and what really happened during the Burr Hamilton duel.
All right.
So it's a
You
combination of jokes, um, philosophy, history, and people being punched in the face.
you managed to both sell me on your upcoming series and sell me on the idea that I need to go back and I mean, do you have any idea how long my reading list is, Fred? That's not very nice.
It's not Britain.
Um,
Slightly higher above it. To me.
s- so yeah, no, Archer and Armstrong just climbed my list a little bit
And I
because
believe if you have Comixology Unlimited,
I do. So I
I
know that I can
believe
get a lot of
Volume 1, the Michelangelo code is free for
yeah,
you.
a
So
lot of Valiant is on Comixology Unlimited.
great. So yeah.
It's one of the few reasons I still have Comixology Unlimited, as so many of the other ones are on. Um, why am
What's
I
the other
drawing
one?
a blank? The the new there's a new actually Mad Cave does all of its stuff. Global Comics has become a favorite of mine. Because they actually get a lot of first day
Oh, is
releases
that right?
on their subscription.
What's the name of the service? Is it
Global Comics.
Global, right? And there's
Yeah,
also like Umbrella.
yeah. Omnibus actually died already.
Okay. Not I
They
think that might
just
have happened so quickly. I think I missed it.
yeah they just sent out the message that like download your stuff because it'll all be gone by August. And I'm really frustrated because the one publisher that I bought anything from on Omnibus that won't let you download your stuff is Valiant.
Interesting. Yeah,
Which for
it was
for
a
a
shame.
while their
Uh,
single issue comics weren't coming out through Amazon. So I literally like I was reading
oh,
I was reading the Exo Man of War from Liam Sharp and Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad. And like the
right.
first 3 issues are available on Amazon, and the next three issues were only
Huh.
available on Omnibus.
Well, I guess that they picked the wrong horse on that one,
Well, I mean, to a certain extent, we're just at this since Amazon dismantled the comiXology.
which was very
Uh,
sad because
it was really
Ryan
sad.
Dunleavy and I, we originally self-published our nonfiction comics, and so we were like the third publisher ever signed by comiXology.
Right.
Back in
Uh,
2005. It's
it
pretty
was
sad
it
to see that go.
yeah, and it was particularly sad because comiXology worked so well on so many levels, and
Yes.
most of them in ways that made people like me spend way more money because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I could just click on the creator and see all the stuff. I can click on the genre and see all the stuff. I can click on the editor and see all the stuff. And now it's been rolled into Kindle, but Kindle doesn't have that level of functionality to apply to comic books. So there's not nearly the level of metadata. Uh, and I'm sitting there going, was making your tech team a little bit smaller really worth the sales that you're likely to lose? Maybe. Um,
I don't know.
but yeah, no, you sold me on Archer and Armstrong there. Uh, so Valiant, Murder Kingdom, comic
Game.
book history, role playing games. Anything else that we should know about?
And the Bloodshot novel, January,
Bloodshot novel in January. All right. So
which is
now it's
technically
time.
also Valiant, but not
All
comics.
right. Now it's time for my favorite question.
Bring it.
And I prefer a comic book answer, but you're not required to come up with a comic book answer. Tell me something that you love that you wish more people had read, watched, experienced, so that you had more people to talk about it with.
That's a long list. I will
Yeah,
give you
you can give me as much as you want.
I will give you a role playing game answer.
Okay.
Which is during the pandemic, my monthly group went to Zoom, and we loved the Dishonored role playing game, which is a terrific video game that this London company called Modifius turned into a game using their 2D20 system. It's a little hard to describe. It's not quite steampunk because there's magic, but
Right?
it's like a fantasy sort of late 19th century Europe or Britain, and there's monsters and witches, and it's just super fun. And we had a great
We've
time.
been messing around with new role-playing games in the two. I mean,
Well,
I
Modifius,
say two groups, but it's really two GMs with mostly the same group. Um,
right? That happens. That happens. Yeah, Modifius is great. They're out of London. They have the Star Trek and Dune licenses. They have the Fallout license. The Fallout RPG super fun. We're talking about doing a Star Trek campaign, but I haven't quite
cool.
mustered.
Actually, I had Jackson Lansing, Colin Kelly, and Chris Cantwell on together when they started up the current Star Trek books because
Cool.
Cantwell's a friend, and I'm like, so now you're going to make me get into one of your obsessions because you're writing a Star Trek book. Because I've
Right.
never been a Star Trek guy. So I'm like, I need a crash course. One of the coolest things I learned is apparently like a significant part of what has been done in their IDW Star Trek run. Jackson and Colin adapted from like a 5-year Star Trek role-playing game that they did 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of
So
Murder Kingdom, the Murder Kingdom Storybook Kingdom park, the story idea came first, but then I did a Fallout post-apocalyptic campaign that was set in Storybook Kingdom. So a lot of the rides and worlds and stuff in Storybook Kingdom from Murder Kingdom came out of this campaign, and I sold another book to Mad Cave that's actually based on a top secret campaign I ran a few years ago. So
okay.
a lot of
Is that
crossover.
one we can talk about yet, or is that not announced?
It is not, but the artist
Okay.
is touched. I actually need to write the second issue next week.
Well, I'm looking forward to it because again, Mad Cave has been doing amazing things. We've talked to a couple of their editors as well. And for that matter, I cannot tell this story often enough because we hear the opposite too often with these surging comic book companies.
My Mad Cave editor is in my D&D group. That's where I kind of met
Oh,
her.
that's awesome.
So
Who's your
that's
editor
where
at Mad Cave?
Lauren Itzhausen. She's primarily
Oh,
the
that's
Maverick.
literally who I talked to on the
Yeah.
show. She's
Yep.
she's
Great.
awesome.
Yep.
Um, but no, we were starting to notice all the stuff, cool stuff coming from Mad Cave, and having been impressed by a couple of other companies that then wound up to not be paying people very well or at all. Um, I went into C2E2 going, who do I know that has stuff at Mad Cave? I need to go talk to them. Because we want to make certain. And like the first thing I heard was pay decent rates on time by direct deposit. In fact, and this was from an artist, he's like, if I turn in pages Wednesday night, they will be reflected on the Thursday check. And I'm sitting there going,
Yeah.
so
That's
they
good.
hired a business manager. Yes, we can
Yeah.
plug this
No,
company.
it's been great. And if it weren't for Lauren, I probably wouldn't be involved at all. So that's
Yeah,
been
no,
very
she
fortuitous
she
all around.
runs the she's in charge of the Maverick line
Yep.
now.
Mhm.
She's working.
This
I don't.
started out Murder Kingdom started out as a YA thing, but she was like, I want this to be really gory. So I'm the only adult book she edits.
She edits. Yeah, she's fantastic. I had so much fun talking to her. Um, so you gave us a game. Do you want to give us anything else? You said there's so much that you love that not enough
Um,
other people.
Geez, honestly, I buy so many comics on Kickstarter now. Like it's hard to it's like my primary comic shop.
Yeah, I do
Um,
my share of Kickstarter stuff too.
uh, no, I think I'm good.
Okay. Well, Fred, as always, it was a blast.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, and let me take us
Murder
out, but
Kingdom
then I
is
want
in
to,
October. Maybe we'll swing
yes,
back for that.
yeah, maybe we'll bring Chris along.
That'd be
Um,
great. He's in
so
Brittany, France, so I'll have to
we'll have to work
coordinate
time, but
time.
we've done that before.
Yeah, sounds good.
It's actually ironically way easier to do Japan and Australia than it is to do Britain and France.
I believe that since they're so far ahead.
Exactly. So let me take us out, but stick around for just a second. For 22 panels, this has been Fred Van Lente, and we will catch you after the next page.
Hey guys, this is Tyler from 22 Panels. I'm here to tell you all about our Patreon. If you enjoy this show, please consider donating to our Patreon to keep this show going. We have many different tiers, all different levels to help you decide what's right for you. Okay, so get on out there to patreon.com/22 Panels Podcast.